Welcome to Awaken Empower TV. I'm your host, Ethan Fox, and today we're doing another special episode with my co-host, Michaela Shelton. So she'll be with us today for another 2 hours, and we'll be doing some channeling toward the second part of it. But first, I wanted to talk a little with her about some of her experiences recently, and really what we've both been experiencing was we get a lot of people from around the world contacting us and letting us know how they're doing, and also, we both do private sessions with individuals, and so we've had an opportunity to see some of the growth that's happened in the last several months as we've seen a shift in consciousness with a lot of people. So, welcome back to the show again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure, pleasure. And so you've said that you've noticed some changes in the sessions you've been doing and just otherwise as well, right? So can you share some stories of things?
Yeah. So we talked in the last episode about the planetary shift and some of the experiences people are having because of the chakra fields that have been engaged through that alignment. And the guides have been talking a lot about communication and how we have now opened this new window and raised the frequency around communication with outer beings, angelic presence, all different types of dimensional beings. So that's one of the things I'm seeing for sure. And I tell you what's really interesting is, and I did allude to this also in the last episode, was I went through a major shift in my world with that energy upgrade, and my physical body took a real hit and I had to rest for a long period of time. But during that time I was dimensionally traveling, and it was a very odd feeling. A lot of out-of-body travel. It didn't feel like it was really in my control, but yet it didn't feel negative to me. I didn't have any negative experiences. Everything was real high vibe and very positive. But I'm noticing a lot of people having the same thing going on. And I actually heard it twice today. One from a very close friend on Facebook that was posting about being sick recently and feeling as if she was dimensionally traveling and had no idea what was going on. I quick shot her a message and said, hey, have you watched any of my recent videos? Because the same thing has been happening to me. But I also got a phone call from someone today who said, it's really funny. I just feel a little foggy. I feel as if my light body is traveling and I don't really have a lot of control. I'm not really in this physical reality a lot. I kind of feel like I'm elsewhere. So that's been one side of the coin, but the communication as well. And I've had a lot of clients who have opened up this new window to receiving messages from guides and, beings. And I had one the other day who is just getting words, 1 or 2 words. And the guides were saying, that's going to expand for you. That's just the beginning. But what I feel is going on too is that a lot of people, even though this is happening for them, they're not really believing what's going on, right? Because we tend to do that when stuff like that happens to us. And because I did that for a really long period. I know you did too with, you walk around and you go, that couldn't possibly have been what it was. And there's so many stories like that. I know you do too. But I think there's a lot of people that are doing that right now, right? That are walking around like, that couldn't have possibly been what I thought it was. Or I have had a lot of clients who in the channeled session, the guides have told them you're channeling or you're, communicating with souls that have passed. And after the session, they told me, I am, but I didn't really think that was what it was, or I was doubting it. So that's going on too, which is pretty interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
So do you think that's a result of the consciousness shift, or the planetary shift that's happened since March, or do you think that that's happening because of they're working with you through some of the ascension processes, or some combination?
I think it's both.
Okay.
I'll just say that the people that come to me for sessions seem across the board to be light workers. I mean, they are people that are healers or teachers. They're working on themselves. They are of higher consciousness. Otherwise they wouldn't resonate with what I do in the material. So I think that's a part of it. And I'll tell you this one client I had yesterday that I'm bringing up with the example about the words. The first image that I got for her was a deck of cards in my mind's eye. And the guides were saying, the cards are stacked in your favor. I had no idea what that meant, but I told her, I said, the guides are saying the cards are stacked in your favor. And, but we didn't really know why. And then they wrapped this message all around the communication. And what they said was the energies of the planetary shift are what is allowing the cards to be stacked in her favor, because those energies are just supporting her raise in consciousness and raise in frequency right now to be able to work with that stuff. So the message was, if you're really intentional in it and you know it's coming in and you work on it, you're being supported by the planetary energies right now. So I think it's both. Those people that are really working on it are getting a boost from that most recent upgrade we had.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I've had some interesting things happening with people who come to my events as well. Has been going on for a while, but just last month I had a young woman come to one of my events. I didn't know her. I don't even know who she was, but she was friends with someone who we both know, and she went home after the first time at my energy transfer event and called a friend and told her that she could see auras, and she hadn't been able to see auras since she was a young child.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden she could see auras again, which I thought was pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of things seem to happen at my events anyway, but I don't hear those stories all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I've noticed those shifts happening even around the events that I have been doing.
Yeah, definitely.
So now when you were, and I don't know if we ever talked about this before, but did you ever, I ask this question a lot of times in my interviews, but you just started channeling really officially in the last several years, but is this something that you've always had the ability to do, or were you, what was childhood like for you? Because a lot of kids say, a lot of parents, I think, they don't know what to do with kids when their kids are taught having what they call an imaginary friend, right? And I've often wondered, is an imaginary friend really just imaginary, or are they really talking to something, either a spirit guide or maybe a relative who's passed on or something, and it's not imaginary at all, but because most parents don't really have a concept for that, they just chalk it up to imaginary, right? Did you have any experiences like that?
Yeah, and I completely believe that, that kids that have imaginary friends, they aren't imaginary at all. Mm-hmm. Because, we're born with this innocence and we're born with this pure connection to source. And we get here with all of this and we're bombarded, right, with all of the programming and the religion and the institutions and all the things that teach us we aren't who we thought we were. But yeah, my childhood, it's funny. I never really thought that I did any of this as a child. I thought it just came to me later in life and I had this spiritual awakening. But one day I was in the kitchen and I was just doing my thing. I was making dinner. I was, preparing a meal. And I was having this two-way conversation going on, just like you'd be chatting on the phone, but I was just chatting with a being outside of myself and didn't even realize I was doing it. And I paused and went, I used to do this as a child. And I distinctly remembered in that moment, all of the memories flooded back, that I did this as a child. But I was raised very strict Catholic Italian upbringing, went to catechism every week, not criticizing that upbringing. I had a very good life as a child, but yet, I didn't have anyone around me who explained this sort of thing to me or who understood it or who even did it themselves. So I think I just shut it down. And I think that happens a lot with children, that they come in with these higher abilities and they are just second nature. And then we shut them down because of the way that they're taught, right? And institutions, we teach everyone is the same and we teach to everyone the same, which I think also, the beautiful aspect of how we connect. And I really feel we're all built to connect. Obviously you do it different than I do, and it manifests differently in the outcome. But it's so unique to who we are. And yet as children, we're put in a classroom with the same age children and, taught the same things that we're all supposed to get the same grade, right? So right there, that unique part of who we are gets shut down. So, but as a child, I most certainly believe I channeled and connected with energies. I don't remember specific events or experiences, but I certainly remember those two-way conversations going on all the time. And I remember them even with historic characters, which is really interesting. I just remember a lot of accents and, people that you would learn about in history class that I was having conversations with. So, no question. No question I did this as a child.
So if somebody has a child who's doing that, they could very well have some sort of channeling ability possibly, or be a medium even. Mm-hmm. So I know your kids are very gifted. Do they do that? Do they have these kind of conversations?
Yeah. They do, but not until I started opening up about what I did. Mm-hmm. And we did talk about this, I think, in one of the episodes. But I have 2 teenage daughters, and my oldest is clairvoyant. She sees spirit, so she can see guides around you. She can describe who those guides are. She can see souls in the room that have passed. She doesn't use it all the time, so there's an on and off switch for that, and I can tell. She doesn't really like to have that on switch turned up all the time, which I can imagine wouldn't be exactly fun to walk around like that all day long. But when she turns it on, I can tell, she's really looking past where you are. But we talked a little bit about in one of the episodes, she came into her gifts at the 9/11 memorial, right? And so that was a very interesting experience for her that I was able to share. My youngest daughter is a medium. She speaks to souls who have passed. And it just kind of comes into her awareness. She sort of attracts them, and not something she ever talked about until I started opening up about what I do and who I was in the world. So
she just has these conversations at random like you used to? Or?
A lot of things happen for her at night, which I find interesting because the guides talk about that a lot, even especially lately with this most recent shift. Mm-hmm. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that we relax to the point where our breathing comes into sort of a pattern that allows us to connect in that way, or allows our energy field to open in that way. And they talk about that all the time. So I notice with her, she has a lot of experiences when she's drifting off to sleep. And, people come into her room at night and talk to her. But that not always. She has experiences outside of that as well. And I notice she can consciously channel too. She can ask a question and get an answer right away. And I can tell those answers don't come from her because they are not the way she would speak, or they're things that she wouldn't typically know about. Some of the information that she gets. Mm-hmm. And again, I think we do this a lot too. A lot of people are just tapping into that telepathic information universally. And we think, oh, my mind must have made that up. I really recognize now that I get that a lot too. Yeah, she's amazing. And the 3 of us have done some things together in meditation. It's been a while. I think, they're young. I think it kind of creeps them out a little bit. They're not really ready. I let them go at their own pace, and I had to go, believe me, at my own pace too. There were times when this gift was emerging for me so fast. I was going, please slow this down. I wasn't ready. So I know, teenagers who are really just rediscovering that part of who they are, and in a society where it's not as accepted, it's difficult, I think, for them to really step into that wholeheartedly. But they're very interested, and they love to talk about it.
Is it hard for them? I mean, do you think, are they having a hard time finding friends or adjusting to just a normal teenage life because of who they are, do you think?
They go through periods of time. They've both gone through major transitions most recently. So we have this conscious youth group through Flower of Life. That's been a big help. And you and I have run that group together. So for those of you who aren't aware, the group is for kids aged 9 to 18. And we talk about all types of spiritually related topics. We've brought in mediums, and we've done tarot, we've done craniosacral, we've done shamans journeying, a variety of different things. That's really helped my youngest because she needed an outlet, but she also needed to find kids like her that were having those experiences or wanted to talk to her about the experiences that she was having. So that's been great for her. My oldest daughter, she goes in and out of that. I notice there are times when she just doesn't really access that spiritual energy much, and she kind of goes about her life, and then all of a sudden she steps back into it again. And it's interesting, she's on a journey right now. She's on a trip and doing a very intensive theater course and met a variety of new kids from around the country. And she found that they were actually very open to this type of discussion. So she got really excited about that and was sharing with me that, they've been talking a lot about what she does and, having these types of conversations. And I think that has given her, a new level of comfort with who she is. Mm-hmm. So it's not easy. It's not easy. I think to be a child today and recognize that you have these types of gifts, especially with the way the public schools are today. Yeah. It's hard.
Now, I've noticed you've been the last couple of months maybe of events that we've done, you've been channeling the Council of Light. And I think last time we did this, we talked to the Council of Light. Do you think that, I know I've noticed over the years we worked together that every so often you switch to a new consciousness.
Yeah.
So is this a permanent switch, do you think, to a new level of consciousness that happened as a result of the last few months of shifts? Or is this just a temporary or just an additional council group that you're channeling now?
Well, I have to say, based on my personal experience, I think based on my own personal growth, the types of consciousness that I work with are probably going to change, but I don't know for sure. I can only tell you what I've experienced to date, and that is that this channeling gift for me has changed and grown so much. And that's the one thing I tell my clients. I think oftentimes we figure out a way to do something and it's coming real easy, and then it changes. Mm-hmm. And we want to hold on to that and go, why can't I do this way anymore? But you have to be really open to the way things are going to evolve for you, because the way I channel today and the groups and beings that I communicate with, I never would have guessed that it would be that way. But I do think that consciousness, the Council of Light, did come to me because of the most recent shift in the integration period that I went through, and I feel that I am holding a higher frequency because of that. We all are. And I think that allowed me to connect to that consciousness, no question. And I noticed that as I evolve and as my consciousness changes, I've gone through a variety of different guides and beings. Some of them are still here, some of them are not. But it's always evolving and changing based on where I'm at.
Yeah, I've been interviewing a lot of people in the recent weeks on the subject of extraterrestrials, and I know the council is primarily, they're all extraterrestrial, I think. There are some human.
There's one that is a human hybrid.
Oh, right, okay.
And I know that because I actually traveled to meet them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had a really interesting experience with the Council of Light. And I started channeling them in my live sessions. And in my book first, I've been channeling a book, and they came in for the book first and told who they were. And they are a 12th dimensional consciousness made up of a variety of different beings that have ascended through the 12th dimension. And they are a one being. and they are here to assist us. And I was, through this integration of this shift, a lot of people know we've been dimensionally traveling. I have been too. As I slip into a meditative state or I get ready to take a nap, I kind of drift off and I end up somewhere else. And I ended up at a table, with this council, and all of the beings looked the same with the exception of two. One looked the same as the rest, but was quite bigger, who sat at the head of the table. And there was one being who resembled a human. And I was told after that experience that there was one human hybrid being that was a part of that collective. But what was interesting about that experience, and I'll share, is they were all separate around this table, as was I. And I was asking them questions, and they put us at a table, like an actual wooden table. And I kind of knocked on the table and I said, why this physical wooden table in this dimension? And they laughed and said, well, you put that here in your, creation. You've created that table and you brought that table here, and that table can be gone. And the table disappeared and we all became one. And I experienced that with these beings, where we all became a part of each other in this big ball of light. And it was a very blissful and loving energy. So it was really neat for me to experience that. But that's what they are. They really are a one being, a one consciousness. But I think I experienced them first being separate like that.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I've done a number of interviews recently, and some of them have been very interesting, and a lot of them have been focusing on extraterrestrial races, and I find it hard sometimes because some of the stories, I'm a little rational, left-brained, even though I'm open to all these areas, but it's really fascinating, some of the things that are happening out there, and I shared with, I don't know if you listened to this, but I shared with James in his interview about the picture that we posted from the expo with the little orbs in it.
Yeah.
Did you hear that, what he said about that?
I did not hear that, no.
Yeah, so James has photographed orbs, and they've magnified the orbs, and they found actual images of spirit guides inside them, and I didn't know that. So
I've seen some of those.
Yeah, so I guess he's done that. And so he said sometimes they're animal spirits, sometimes they're spirit guides, or ascended masters or whatever, and so I found that very fascinating, because we've had that in our pictures as well.
Yeah, there were quite a few. Yeah, and they were very detailed. Yeah.
So I've been really delving more into the whole ET conversation lately, and I'm not exactly sure. There's so much variety of interesting stories, and sometimes I think we're living in we're living in an amazing time and an amazing world, and we're heading into an incredible future. But it's hard to say, because sometimes a lot of these forecasts and timelines miss, right?
Right.
And I understand the reasons why they do. But do you have any thoughts on any of that? Because I know you've listened to some of the interviews I've done, and of course you're channeling extraterrestrials. So
right. Well, the message that I'm getting most recently is we have the ability to create the timelines here that we want to experience. And we have to make sure that we're aware that we have that ability, because I feel like we get really caught up in these races coming here to change things and shift us and take care of everything for us. And that's really not the case. So the one thing we have to be really careful about, because all of these predictions, and this is my opinion based on what my guides are saying, I'm not here to say that these predictions aren't going to happen. I don't feel that they are going to happen quite as severely as what they're being put out there. But we have to remember that we have the ability through our consciousness here on the planet to create whatever timeline we choose.
Mm-hmm.
So if we choose to get really wrapped up in what a lot of this scary stuff is telling us, that's what we're going to experience here. Or, you know, there can be timelines that can split off, right? Where we can have a group of, you know, human beings experiencing a timeline and some of us are going a different direction. So I do think that's possible, you know.
Yeah. Well, between channeling with you and also my interviews with several people recently, I'm sort of leaning toward we're not going to have any major catastrophic anything in the next several months.
Yeah.
Although there's been a lot of conversation about that online, I don't think it's going to amount to much.
Yeah, I guess it depends on your level of consciousness and what you feel catastrophic is.
Right.
That's the way I feel. I think there's going to be some changes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, we've already seen some things in the stock markets happening this past week. So if you're on, you know, a timeline or a dimensional reality where that is catastrophic to you, you know, there's a lot of fear-based, you know, thinking around that. So, you know, if you're not really paying attention to that kind of stuff and you know the direction we're heading, then it's not quite as catastrophic.
Right.
So I do think there's going to be things that are going to happen, and I think there has to be within our physical world in order, you know, like guys are saying, we can't hold a fifth dimensional consciousness here with all this stuff.
Right.
You know, it has to fail, and it has to be rebuilt into something new. So, I mean, the people that are in fear about it failing may see it as catastrophic, but I don't feel it's going to be anything life-threatening,
Right.
I guess. Yeah.
Well, even James was talking about how, I mean, it hasn't been verified yet, but that there may be some sort of Chinese takeover of the U.S. Federal Reserve, and which
Right.
would result in Federal Reserve notes not being used anymore, which would actually be a good thing. But
Right.
I mean, if something like that were to happen in the short-term future, because he's basically saying if it's going to happen, it's going to happen very soon. So that would be one potential positive that could occur.
Right.
Which, of course, yeah, I mean, that could result in a destabilization of the stock market because people who believe in the conventional system are going to stress out about it.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, it's a good thing because it puts power back in the hands of the people more
Right.
than it is now anyway.
Yeah, I've had a lot of, I work with a lot of light workers who are trying right now really hard to bridge that gap, as you know, right? With the financials, you know, making money, doing what they're meant to do, and, you know, working with service and that sort of thing. And I've had a really consistent message about corporations, because the whole corporate structure in itself is a consciousness.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. I had someone who works for a very prominent electronics company and makes great money, but, you know, doesn't really enjoy the job and knows that their purpose is different than sitting at a desk and doing what they do all day. And the message that came through is about the consciousness of that company and how our frequency is changing, the frequency of the planet is changing. It's not going to support that type of a consciousness anymore. So I think we might even see some major corporations start to fail for that reason.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, recently, I remember when in one of your events, somebody asked a question about Monsanto.
Yeah.
And the answer was essentially, and of course, we talked about this before, and you've even been to some Monsanto rallies and had the same experience.
Yeah.
That, you know, a lot of the people who are out there protesting about Monsanto are really causing more problems.
Right.
Because they're aligning with the negative energy and basically empowering it as opposed to just letting it be and doing something different.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like there's such a fine line and a balance we have to find, because I mean, I am so grateful for the alternative media and all of the great things that they are doing, because we need them, you know, and they are awakening so many people. But I feel like even the alternative media, when they grab onto a negative story and it gets expanded, you know, into the aware, and people are sharing and talking about it. I mean, there's a lot going on right now with a lot of different things like that. It doesn't help the situation. I'm not saying we don't need to know about those things. I think we do. You know, I definitely believe we need to know there's a lot of things that are going on that are not good on the planet. And we need to know them. We need to know the truth. But do we need to, harp on the truth? Do we need to keep spewing anger about the truth? That is, I think, what gets us into this timeline issue, right? Where we're creating something that we don't want to experience.
Mm-hmm. In my conversation with James, he was sharing with me how there are pterodactyls appearing in the East Side Ranch now.
I did hear that part. I haven't seen the whole interview yet. That is so cool.
That's very interesting. So apparently they have some kind of space-time slips that occur on the ranch, and because it's a vortex point, I guess. And so, I'm a little skeptical. So, I asked him, I said, so you're literally seeing, I said, are these little birds? He said, no, they're really big, and several people have seen them, and you've seen them on the side of the road eating roadkill and flying above them and making this very loud noise, and he also saw, I forget how tall it was, but I think 7-foot tall storks or something, and they've taken pictures of them, put on their site. So interesting things going on out there. I know you want to go out there one day and experience it.
I would love to go to study.
Right. Yeah, so there's just a lot of really interesting things going on in the world, but sometimes I don't know, what to make of all of it, because some of it, every person I speak to, or articles I read, or even interviews that I watch, or even people I interview, most of their opinions and feelings about the universe are pretty similar, but there are some discrepancies, and I have a hard time deciding what's what a lot of times. And I asked James that question, actually, and he said, well, you just have to do your research, because I was curious, well, how does he know what he believes is right,
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any thoughts on that? Because, you channel extraterrestrials.
It's so hard. And look at all the channels out there that are channeling different types of material. And, how do you know what's what? You really don't. We don't really have any concrete evidence of anything. For me, I go with my gut and how I feel, and actually the guides have said the same thing. We were built with this extrasensory ability to really be able to understand truth, and I think we feel it. You either know you resonate with something or you don't, right? You start reading it and you think, this is either something that's good or bad, but also notice the fear. I think that's another one they've pointed out a lot. If there's something that you're reading and it's like fear-based, I think that's a big cue that we have to pay attention to. Because if you look at channeled information, one of the things that I've learned along the way is nothing is fear-based that comes from that dimensional reality. Everything is inspirational, uplifting. Do they talk about problems and issues? Yeah. No question. Do they talk about things that have gone wrong on the planet? Yeah, no question. But they don't talk about it in a way that's fear-based, and they don't talk about it in a way that it's not recoverable. There's always something that we are able to do, and the potential of who we are can overcome any of this. And so I look for that recipe in the stuff that I pay attention to. Mm-hmm. So if it's 100% fear-based, it doesn't feel good to me.
Right.
They're
not all channels. Obviously your information is all positive, even though they're addressing sometimes fearful topics.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But not all channels channel positive, right?
Well, of course not. Yeah. And the one thing I notice when my guides say a lot is we aren't saying this to put you in a frequency of fear, even though they're going to say something fearful. There are brilliant channels out there with a variety of different collectives that they're working with, and they all have a unique purpose. They're here to, connect with a variety of different types of audiences. So, it's just across the board, but I would say too, if you're looking at channeled material, I always use that criteria, and everyone else should. And something that resonates with you might not resonate with me, but we have to pay really close attention to how that feels. Even with energy healers, right? We've talked about that too. There's so many people out there that are doing energy work, and you have to pay close attention to how that energy feels. And how it feels to you might be different.
Right, because the consciousness of the person has to line up with the energy in order for it to be helpful. And so if their consciousness is very low, then they're not going to be able to channel a higher dimensional energy, right?
Right.
In the same way that you're channeling as well.
Yeah, it's an energy match.
Mm-hmm.
It's an energy match. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that the reason we decided to do the show today was because you've been receiving some communication that you needed to channel on something, right? And who was that was trying to communicate?
So I work with a collective group of guides. St. Thomas of Aquinas is one of the guides that steps forward from that collective. And actually, he's been a very prominent figure in my live channels as well as in my client sessions. Which is interesting because usually I'm working more with the guides of the people that are working with, and those guides are coming in, but Thomas has been really prominent in all of my private sessions lately. But he did pop in on me the other day, and I knew I had to pay attention, and the message that I got was that I needed to record a video, and that there was something about the grid, the energy grid that was changing that needed to be discussed. So, that's why we decided to do the show together, just to get this message out. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, why don't we start channeling, and then we can always, if we finish, we can always talk after if there's time.
Okay. Okay, so I get Jeremiah and Thomas, who are very pleased to begin, and there is a collective consciousness that is assembled for this message that is coming through this channel as a frequency of energy in which is being received by those who are assembling now to hear this message, and we will begin. As there has been a recent energetic shift upon your planet and there has been a frequency adjustment, we ask that all of you understand the connective force of nature that is a part of this planetary being. And we wish to explain that collective force of nature to you and its importance in this entire process. Because in essence, as a human consciousness, your ascension process is not related to any one factor. And many of you realize that there are outside factors affecting your energy body, and those outside factors are coming off your planetary home from a variety of means, whether those are solar in essence, whether those are a planetary alignment, whether those are energies that are being modified or frequencies that are being modified and sent to your planetary being. All of these do have an effect on your energy field. There is another component that we want to speak of, and that is the energies that you are receiving from this earthly being as one. Through the connective gravitational pull of this planetary being to your energy body, you hold a direct link to a one consciousness through her. We want to explain this because in many messages we have said that the goal of your planetary being in its current ascension timeline is to reform a one consciousness here, as that one consciousness has been disassembled. What we mean when we say this is that you have been programmed or refocused within your singular being as separate from that one consciousness. But the web by which that one consciousness is connected through your planetary energy, through all of the intricate structure of your unique energy body, there is a potential of a one consciousness that is always working through you and connected to her, and her being the divine Gaia mother field of energy. When you think of this web of consciousness that connects you with nature, it is the one force of divine energy within your field that has the potential to create timelines within your planetary space. We would say that this field, although it has been disassembled in your physical reality, still holds an energetic connection through your spiritual body and through, in essence, the spiritual body of every living, breathing organism that is a part of this planetary being. The potential here to create through this connection is quite great. And that is why we say it is your ability to heal the planet by coming back together through this one consciousness. There is a part of this intricate structure that is also connected to a universal energetic grid that we wish to share. This energy grid goes beyond your planetary being to connect you through many dimensional realities to many outer beings as well. So often when we say we are one with the universe, it is through this energy grid that is connecting all of us. It is a complicated issue to explain because this energy grid is being lit up or charged or activated through your human consciousness in a variety of different ways because of the separate nature that you hold. Let us explain. We have often talked about the consciousness of war upon your planet, or the consciousness of the government agencies upon your planet. That is a one body of energy that is connected to this web of oneness we speak of. So the creation through that consciousness is always going out into the universe through this energetic grid and creating new timelines, expanding energies, and allowing us all to access information that is new, universal, energetic, available, connective material, we would say. Where this is benefiting you is that through this energy grid, there is a two-way flow of information. Yet the dominant flow of information is coming from the higher dimensional realms to your planetary being. That is through the free will choice and the engagement of many higher dimensions that realize the universal energies must be balanced to assist the entire ascension process. We have talked about a balance and harmony that must be present universally in order to keep you in this timeline of ascension that is the right direction for the human planet. That is to override those dominant consciousness of lower vibrational connective energies to the grid, meaning the wars, the corporate structures, the government agencies, the institutions, the religions that have been formed as a part of this web. So what we are asking the human consciousness to pay close attention to now is where these energies are being formed in a lower vibrational state through the grid. The grid we speak of as that web of connective energy to each other through the planetary being and beyond. Because, in essence, as we have said, that the dominant flow of energy has been from the higher dimensions to your planetary being, there is an alignment that is coming within the next 6-month time frame that is going to be an adjustment in the opposite direction. And you may wonder, why would the higher dimensions of the universal fabric wish to receive information from this planetary being as an expansive energetic or an energetic material to expand upon? And what we wish to tell you is that there is a very important connective force between all of us in the universe that allows us to assemble as a one universal light. So it is the microcosm of the macrocosm here. And let us break this down for you. As your planetary being is attempting to reconnect as a one consciousness in the higher lights, there is a part of that information that is sent to everyone through that connection to raise the frequency and balance and harmonize the level of consciousness here on the planet. There must be a mix of light and dark. There must be a release of karmic experience. There must be an acceptance of that karma. It is a neutral energy that is found and balanced too, in order to raise the vibration. And many may be surprised by this announcement because they feel only higher energies are needed in order to raise the consciousness. But you see, my friends, the karmic or the lower vibrational energies are a part of that balance. They always were intended to be and must be. The karmic experiences that you have allow for the creative energy to expand, regardless of how you interpret that energy. So when we say that the energies will be received into the higher dimensions from your earthly plane, this is a part of that balance. This is a part of that harmonization of the grid. And it is always a two-way process. Now, where we say the grid is in jeopardy is if that balance becomes outweighed. Where timelines are created that are not beneficial to your planetary being in conjunction with an acceptance of these energies by higher dimensional realms. We want to pinpoint for you exactly where some of this is happening and why. Your structure is a very intricate one that is not only connected to the brain waves and the frequency of the heart chakra, but also connected to the intricate frequency of the Mother Earth planet. As such, you have, through this intricate, extrasensory, physical anatomy, to allow your energy body to create whatever timeline you so choose. It is just that you are not aware of how you are doing this. You are mainly doing this through the connection of the brain stem or the brain waves to the frequency of your emotion. The frequency of your emotion is creating the outer experience through the match of that energy. We want to bring in now how the polar energies and the solar energies affect this complicated structure. We say complicated because we know this is difficult for many to understand, and we are breaking it down into a way that you can begin to realize that you are bigger than who you seem to be in this physical body. The polar energies are always associated with how this magnetic structure runs through the grid. So, if the polar aspects of your planet have been magnetized to a higher frequency, it is giving you the ability to easier create timelines through your human consciousness. So think of it as assisting you. Solar energies work in much of the same way. So when the solar energies are expanded to your planetary being, this grid is also lit up in a way that allows you the access to fuel the creation of these timelines through this connective force. If you must know, we would say this is why you have been hidden or blocked from your access to solar energies on a daily basis, because they are the catalyst by which you use this intricate connection to create timelines. The alignment that we speak of is going to put the human race in a very unique position. And that unique position will allow them to receive the highest frequency through the grid in order to create, as a one consciousness, a new timeline here. That new timeline that is created here is an energetic creation that will be received through all dimensional realities. The basis for this is going to be the dominant emotion that is held upon your planetary being as a one consciousness. We understand that this has been a difficult integration as of late, and we understand that there is more yet to integrate. What human beings must realize is that through the growing pains of this planetary alignment that we have been speaking of, the beauty of the higher frequency brings in the connective force of nature that creates the change that you wish to see, not only here, but the change or the expansion that assists many other races in their ascension process. But if you are inundated by stories or by those lower vibrational entities that wish to create the timeline for you of a lower frequency, this will not only have a detrimental effect on your planetary ascension, it will have a detrimental effect on all dimensions, on all races, and offer a new timeline of acceptance. And that timeline of acceptance, we want you to know, is not one that we wish to put you into fear over. It is not one that cannot be changed. And if you knew how easily you had the ability to shift and change this within your physical world, you would laugh out loud, my friends, because it is that simple. It is just that all human beings need to hold the frequency to do this. What we're asking human beings to pay close attention to is that we have noticed through our intricate connection to you that the grid has the ability to move into a space where a timeline is created of a reality that is not suited for your planetary being. There has been a plan, there has been a process, there has been many aspects of your reality that have shifted and changed in the many past years. They are all very purposeful, and they all have meaning, and they are all timelines that are heading into a new era of light and love and peace and harmony and freedom for your planetary being. But if you so choose to accept a timeline of lower vibration as a dominant frequency here, the grid shifts in a very dramatic way. The alignment of the grid is not controlled by any one being or any one collective. The grid is created through the experience and the expansion of every race and every being that is connected to it. And if there is a dominant force of lower vibration that allows you to lower your emotional frequency to the place in which that grid is modified from its original Akashic record, we would say it would take a reversal of many years in order to shift and change it to its return. The potential here for this to happen, we would say, is not one that we would place in a very high range. So when we say this, we're not asking human beings to be in a place of fear as if this is something that is already done or on its way. But the reason we say this is for you to pay very close attention to how you connect to all of it. And through the next 6-month frequency shift, how you have the choice to use those higher energies to create a better timeline. And as that better timeline is created, the entire grid benefits from that energetic experience. If you are believing of the many stories and the histories that you are going to be told in the coming several months regarding your planetary being, there is an essence of this reality that could come into fruition. So what we're asking human beings to do is to turn away from the stories, is to turn away from the history, is to turn away from the aspects of your reality that are causing you lower frequency, dominant emotional responses, because these responses are the capacity by which you bring this grid shift into a new reality and facilitate a timeline that was not planned for your human race. In essence, what we want to say is the lower vibrational consciousness that is dominant upon your planet is also knowing the capacity of that energetic grid to shift in the direction of their favor. So as they are knowing of this creative energy force of ability they have to manifest, there is going to be much within your energetic awareness that is a frequency-based lower modification program that is meant to be placed within your energy field to lower your frequency. We'll give you an example of this. These would be many of the fear-based stories upon your planet of disaster, many of the fear-based stories upon your planet of takeovers or of catastrophe. There are many fear-based stories coming into your reality of rationing, of health-based crisis, and even of weather-based crisis. We would say if you attach to any of these timelines through your emotional capacity to create energy, you will create it. You will create that energy through the intricate connection you have to one another and through the intricate connection you have to this being. So what we are saying in essence is that light workers, or those of a higher consciousness that are the ones that will begin to forge that new reality, are being targeted right now. They are being, there is a large amount of attention being placed upon those with a higher consciousness through their means or their mechanism to receive information, and that information is subliminally being changed or modified in order to change and modify your emotional body and your frequency point of attraction. So, how do you stay aligned with the higher frequencies? How do you stay aligned with truth? That is the message we want to get to here in order to preserve this grid, in order to preserve the integrity of the information and the creative force of energy that is coming through the grid. That is only by connecting to your true nature. Every human being upon this planet that is a part of all of it and has every bit of the universal DNA connective force within their being has the ability to decipher truth, to receive universal information, and to accept it through their frequency, allowing them to balance to a higher emotion. To break this down for you and put it into your everyday physical reality, we would say, pay close attention to the stories of fear, and when they are coming up within your reality, do not make them your own. If you are making them your own, you are doing it by your own actions. So, creative force of energy is manifested through your action. If you are taking action from a lower vibrational standpoint, meaning you are taking action from a place of fear, you are planning your reality from a lower vibrational aspect of fear based on a story that has been told to you or based upon programming that has been placed within your framework of reality, you are in essence creating a new timeline. Not only for yourself, but remember that you are intricately connected to this grid. You are intricately connected through the planetary being to one another. And through this grid, you have the ability to manifest a new timeline here, a new reality. And that, in essence, is what you came to overcome. We want to tell lightworkers that the most important message we have for you is that often we have said the next 1.5 to 2 years will be a very difficult journey for you, as you will not see with the outer eyes the things you wish to manifest within your physical reality. This is where, my friends, you must turn away from those things with the outer eyes and look inner. Look inner for your truth. Know that your truth resides in the aspect of your soul that connects to all of it. You have the ability to connect through your chakra fields, through your auric field, and through your resonant energy to all of the universal dimensional beings that are here to assist. And they are bringing you light, love, support, and the highest frequency by which to create. As we have given you this message, we ask you to go forward with the understanding that you are to begin to decipher in your world what those lower vibrational aspects or fear-based aspects are showing up for you as, and how you are placing energy into that consciousness through your action. And take action in a different direction. And we've been pleased to bring forward this message today.
So I have some additional questions. Now I speak with lots of people around the world and a lot of experts in different fields, and I've been hearing for a long time that alternative or free energy technologies are out there and they're viable, and that they have been invented and tested. A lot of inventors are afraid to bring them to the public. But what is it that's preventing these technologies from, and I think we talked about this before, I'm curious, I think we channeled about this before, and or maybe it was in one of my conversations, but the idea was that until the Earth's consciousness is of a certain level, these energy technologies can't exist on Earth, because the energy technologies are of a vibration of love, and we're not quite there yet. And is that so? And is there? When you said earlier that in the next 2 years we're going to have a period of time where we're not going to be able to see the reality we want. Are you saying that after those 2 years we may start seeing these sorts of shifts?
Yes, we are pleased to explain. We would like to bring this definition of the connective energy that you have to one another into the understanding of the free energy technology that you wish to manifest here. Because in essence, you are using the energetic field within your consciousness in order for these technologies to do their work. And yes, it is a love-based frequency. So first, we would like to make the point that if you are not holding a one consciousness of higher vibration upon your planet, these free energy technologies do not have the connective force that is needed in order to put them into service upon this planetary being. Second, we would say that intricate connective force we have spoken of, that web of consciousness that goes beyond this planet, must also be taken into consideration, as there are many timelines that are being created. These timelines can be ones that are manifesting in a direction that is opposite of where these technologies can take hold. So we would agree with the statement that there must be a higher consciousness that is held within this planetary being. But also we want to say that in addition to that, that consciousness must be one that is a dominant weight of higher frequency, not just a small portion of the planet. Where you are headed in the fifth dimensional consciousness is a space in which these technologies come into use. There are technologies that are being used upon your planet today that are of this frequency and of this nature. However, they are not being used to benefit the human consciousness. We would say, as a matter of fact, many within your governmental agencies are using these types of technologies to your detriment, because it is quite easy to create through that energetic connection of the grid in order to manipulate or bring the consciousness to a lower speed. What needs to happen within your physical reality is that the heart resonant energy of the chakra field must connect to all of the dominant force of higher beings upon the planet as a one consciousness and as a love-based frequency through the emotional body. Because we've talked about, in essence, stepping into this fifth dimensional reality and how you become manifestors and creators of energy in a different way. And the human consciousness is currently creating through the frequency of emotion and the emotional body. And that emotional frequency is being used to create through your energy field. These technologies tap into that energy field. So if you are creating from a dominant lower vibration on this planet, those technologies cannot be of benefit, you see. And we would say there is a timeline in which we feel is going to be manifested within this planetary space in the coming 2 years. That will be one that these technologies will be able to be held. We want to talk about the 2-year time frame in a bit more detail, as we know that has been a part of the question that you've asked. The reason we have focused in on the next 2 years is that this is a very pivotal integration period for your planetary being. There are several planetary alignments. Some are solar in nature, some are aligned with ancient sites and structures upon your planet that are going to raise the frequency and give human beings the opportunity to accept a new frequency. This is good. Yes, of course, this is the direction in which the human consciousness wishes to go. But we must remember, and we will point out to you, the recent integrative shift that your planetary being has gone through. And as your singular nature has experienced this integrative shift, there have been many things within your outer world that have been difficult aspects to undergo or to walk through as this energy was integrating. And we have spoken quite often of relationships and positions of career, or positions even of your assignment that have had to shift and change. Things within your physical world that have had to drop away or modify through this new frequency that you held. Imagine now, my friends, as a planetary essence, this frequency shift over the next 2 years and the integration that must happen upon your planetary being as an expression of that singular experience that you had. Your planetary being is going through a very integral time in which the structures, the programs, all of the things upon your planet that have been the third dimensional comforts of your society are also going to have to drop away, shift, modify, or change in response to Mother Earth Gaia's new frequency that she is holding. And that is why we say that in this process, there is also a release of karmic energy, because the emotional body as a separate entity within the human structure is going to be and must be affected by this frequency. Understand that you came here to be physical beings in this time. You signed up for the physical experience in order to enable your soul to manifest through many timelines and dimensional realities. And this physical experience is ready to now change to a new reality. But many of you have learned that the physical experience is all there is. You have been told that the physical experience is the basis for everything that you do and wish to receive as a being here. So as a dominant human consciousness, when these programs and structures and institutions begin to fail as they cannot exist in a fifth dimensional reality, there will be karmic release. There will be emotions of lower vibration. And as we have spoken in many transmissions, these emotions of lower vibration must be expressed. And if they are expressed, they must also be matched with a creative force of energy. This is how many of the wars upon your planet have been engaged. This is how many of the aspects of your reality that have been destructive in nature that you do not wish to see have come into your reality, and how you have created these timelines. We would say ultimately that these are just growing pains for you in essence, because there must be a karmic release. Just as you know your soul must release karma, the planetary being must release karma. Your soul as a one consciousness must release karma. So think of the next 2-year time frame as that purging of that karmic energy and of that lower vibrational frequency. What it will result in is some things upon your planetary space that are not things that you wish to see. But we have told lightworkers also that they should hold on to the energetic faith in knowing that this karma is being expressed, that it is also being cleared for the new. Your planetary being is undergoing a rebirth in this very moment. And the next 2 years is a part of the transition of that rebirth and the integration of the new frequency being held here in this planetary space. As such, you will begin to notice after this integration period, the rebuilding begin. The rebuilding, in essence, is all of the things that you manifest through the new frequency that you hold. These are the new institutions. These are the new ways of teaching. This is the sovereignty that your planetary space wishes to hold. These are the freedoms that your human consciousness speaks so much of wishing to experience. All of these things come into your reality once this integrative period has been walked, you would say.
I have a question about something else. I have been listening to a lot of interviews, and also I interview a lot of people on extraterrestrials and consciousness and so on. And one of the things I heard recently from an individual who claims to be a hybrid between two extraterrestrial races but living in a human form, he claims that that a lower consciousness, multidimensional consciousness has, in a long time ago, put an energetic grid around our planet, such that when souls here incarnate and they leave their bodies at the end of their lives, they are prevented from ascending, and this is what has caused us to have to return and reincarnate into physical bodies on Earth continuously. That grid prevents us as souls from leaving this dimension and ascending beyond it. Is that true? And can you tell anything more about that?
We would agree with this, but we would like to explain it further, as there is some information that is not correct. We would agree with the fact that there is an energetic grid that surrounds your planetary being, and we have described some of that grid and its purpose, as it is multidimensional in nature, and it connects you not only to your planetary being, but to many beings off planet and within other dimensional realities. That grid, in essence, is a two-way flow of information. It is always a connective force of energy between all of us. And through that grid, timelines are being created. Now, where the mistake comes in is that this grid is holding humanity back from ascending past this planetary density. We would like you to understand that it is all within your free will choice to ascend past this planetary density. But we would say that the problem here is that human beings are not understanding of the way in which they create through their energy and the way in which they are affecting the grid. And that is why we brought forward this previous message about the ascension process and the ability that you have right now on this planetary being to make change. There have been timelines that have been created through many periods upon this planet where the dominant emotional frequency has been lower vibrational, in which human beings were not able to ascend past the third dimensional reality. So we don't wish for you to believe that the grid is preventing your dimensional ascension. It is that you are creating timelines on this planetary being that are affecting the grid in such a way that is placing human beings in a difficult position, where they are not resolving the karmic weight or the karmic energy that they need in order to ascend to this new dimensional reality they wish to hold. Now, in saying this, we also want to explain that there are many human beings upon your planetary energy that hold higher dimensional strands of DNA that are creating timelines as a connective force to that dimensional field that are sending them off of the planet. It is just that they are not connected to the human consciousness when they are doing this, yes? So let us explain. If there is a human being upon your planetary space, of which we would say there are many who hold a seventh dimensional DNA genetic strand, that is a very evolved soul that has come here with a higher understanding and a higher consciousness. As such, they are aware that they are creating through their energy. They are not accepting of lower vibrational frequencies. They are using the planetary alignments to their benefit, and they are connecting with higher dimensional realities. Through the grid, they are able to tap into that dimensional reality and create the timeline that they wish to receive, which is one in which they ascend past this grid connective space of third dimension into an ulterior reality or an ulterior dimension. So we would say the way in which the grid works is based upon the consciousness of the human being that it is being connected to. And that consciousness is always dominant if there is a collective within the planetary space that is connective to it. So if there is a timeline created in which human beings are reconnected as a force of one through a one energy, and let us say that one energy is higher vibrational, and that higher vibrational energy is lifting that consciousness to new realities, to new dimensional heights in which they are manifesting peace and freedom and peace within their physical reality, and the outer reflections of their physical reality mirror the peace and the freedoms and the love that they wish to see. Would they be able to expand their dimensional reality into a new point of ascension past this grid of planetary connection? We would say most certainly.
So, now I've been hearing from a lot of my conversations with other people, and also other things I've read and other channeled messages I've heard about. And you've mentioned timelines a lot in this conversation. And I'd like to speak specifically about the extraterrestrial race referred to often as the Greys. And so if you feel that you should bring in a different consciousness to communicate about this, then please do so.
We are pleased.
And who are we speaking with?
Ninth Dimensional Lemurian Ascension Collective.
Okay, so my question is, it's believed by a lot of people that the Greys are actually the human race, but in the future, that we, one particular timeline carried us into a very dark future where we didn't actually ascend at this point that we're in now, but instead we chose a different path where the current governmental consciousness went underground, and this race of Greys were basically the future evolution of this lower consciousness human being many thousands of years into the future, and that they've come back from the future into the present to try to correct the errors that they've made because they are now so devolved that they are suffering and are unable to continue their race into the future. Is any of that? Can you speak on any of that? Is that the reality?
Well, we would say that we agree with some of this story, but it is not something that we would agree with in whole. So let us speak of the race of the Greys, as there are many that have ascended even to a 12th dimensional reality in this race of beings. There are some who have not. So on the structure of the planetary being that the Greys were residing, which is one that is not far outside of the Pleiadian collective or Orion belt, we would say, there was a splitting of the timelines within their history on their planetary space. So in the splitting of the timeline, which in essence happens in a very similar way we are speaking of with the human race. So as we have been privy to the message that has come forward previously regarding the energetic grid and your connection to that grid, every race of beings has the ability to create timelines through this grid, through their own dimensional consciousness, through their own free will choice as a soul that is connective through this universal one. The splitting of this race, as both timelines had come in to their reality, allowed them the opportunity to either choose to access energies differently through their consciousness and begin to seed off planet, or continue to raise the frequency around their collective and begin to heal the home in which they were residing on. Those that were a dominant lower frequency in that timeline creation, in essence, felt that seeding a new planet or a new planetary being would be in their best interest and within their ability to receive healing as a one race. In the split of these timelines, we would say the ability for this race to seed within itself was also separated. The explanation for this would be difficult for you to understand, but it would involve the DNA structure, in that there was a modification of the DNA within this race as these timelines were split. So as the DNA was modified, the race became changed. And as the race became changed, there had to be a new access to energies in order to reproduce or recreate this race of being. So when you say that this race has come to the planet Earth in order to seed and recreate, we would say that we do agree with that, and there is a timeline in which those beings have come onto your planetary space. Would we say that every human being holds the DNA genetic of this race? We would say there is a part of the whole that is you as a one human race, and a part of the DNA genetic of this race is always prevalent within every human being. But it is not to say that it is the dominant aspect of your DNA genetic, and it is not to say that you make up that whole being as they were once structured. So your human race has also been modified as a part of this timeline adjustment, but not only this timeline adjustment of many. There are many millenniums and many timelines that have been experienced here, and your human genome is a part of all of that. You see, you have evolved from a variety of different timelines. Now, let us discuss the underground part of this story and how this race has evolved into your government structures and your government agencies, we would say. In particular, we want you to realize that there are not only one type of consciousness from this race that is a part of your government structure or agencies. There are both. So there are higher vibrational aspects of the gray race that are assisting your government agencies and that are providing information to your planetary being that is for the good and is providing technology and assistance. However, there is also an aspect of lower vibrational consciousness of this race that is infiltrated, we would say, your planetary being and many of the agencies or institutions that you speak of. And as such, they are privy to the technologies or the higher vibrational aspects that that consciousness brings in and able to manipulate them to their liking. The timeline that you speak of in which you feel the human race was recreated or created from, in essence, was wiped clean on your planetary being through many dimensional interventions of multiple races of different frequency. And when we speak of a balance or a harmony within the universal fabric or the connection to the grid, we want you to understand that timelines, although they can be created, they can also be erased, or they can also be manipulated and changed. So in essence, is there a part of your DNA genetic or your history that involves the splitting of this race and a part of that consciousness seeding here? We would say, yes, that is most definitely the case. However, they are not ones that have fully taken over through your energy field in order to create and reseed their own race. They are always making an effort to access your energy body and to create through your energy body, but this is in a variety of different timelines that you are choosing to accept as a one human consciousness in this moment, even, we would say.
You mentioned in the earlier message that somehow there were ancient sites around the world that were participating in this shift at this time. So are you talking about like some of the pyramids, or what do you mean by ancient sites?
Yes, we would refer to pyramidal structures as the receiver of these planetary energies. In addition to that, there are many underground burial sites of ancient artifacts that are connected to planetary energies. And many of these underground sites are within these pyramidal structures as well.
I see. I'd like to speak a little about the Mayan civilization. And now, some years ago in India, there was one of their ancient books or scripts was deciphered, and it was a story about this, and they named it Mayans Antiram, and it was supposedly a writing about this being called Mayan that existed, I don't know in what time frame, but thousands of years ago, and this Mayan person apparently was an extraterrestrial who lived on Earth for a period of time and taught the human beings or whoever was here at the time how to read and write about science and technology, and also built spacecraft, and apparently this Mayan was the being who originally seeded and for whom the Mayan civilization was named after. Is any of that story true, or can you tell us anything more about this individual and how he or she might have inspired knowledge and information that is available to us today?
Yeah, so we would say the story in itself is representative of the DNA strand that this culture was seeded with through the timeline that was accepted as one consciousness that came to engage this civilization. And at the time in which this civilization was brought into reality, there were many beings of light, we would say gods and goddesses that they were referred to of the time, that were present within the dimensional reality that the planetary being was holding, which was one of a higher dimensional reality than what has been held in the timeline in which the human consciousness finds itself in currently. So when we speak of the dimensional reality, we wish for you to understand that there is a ninth dimensional component to this story, in which there was a ninth dimensional consciousness that is representative of this being, and it is not a singular being, it is a one consciousness, and that consciousness in essence comes into form as a Syrian light. And that Syrian light has a connective force not only to its own race, but to other races as well. So many human beings would like to identify with one extraterrestrial race as the one that seeded a specific culture or a specific consciousness of human beings upon the planet. And what we come to tell you is that the higher dimensional beings of light that were often referred to as the gods or the goddesses in many of your history books have in essence been a collective group of beings that presented themselves as a singular one being that held the dimensional reality of a specific consciousness that in essence also contained the DNA oftentimes of many other races combined into one.
I see. So, is that how we ended up with multiple human races on the planet? Because these races were all seeded by a combination of different multidimensional or extraterrestrial races?
We would say yes, as there is a connective understanding that the DNA is a mix of multiple races. You must also understand that you have to associate as well with the timeline in which you are placing this human collective in. For many of you on the planetary being in this current reality are within a third dimensional timeline or a third dimensional reality that you are holding. And that dimensional reality is not just a reflection of your consciousness, it is also a reflection of the DNA genetics that you hold. So the DNA has been manipulated and changed, and we often refer to the human race having being changed genetically. That genetic change is a predisposition to the dimensional consciousness that you are created through. So human beings are in essence seeding each other, and there is a reproductive aspect of your culture or your society that is believed to be the only force of nature by which human beings are born. But we would say that you must understand that there is always an energetic component of any creation upon this planetary space and this planetary being. So there are multiple generations and multiple races of dimensional beings that are seeding the human race through the energy that is held or that is present within these timelines.
So you mentioned reproduction a couple times there, and I'm curious about the whole process of human reproduction, and even the exchange of energy, like that's present in an orgasm, for example. Is that experience somehow a multidimensional experience, because it seems outside the human experience or the human physical experience, and seems to have sort of an energetic vibrational connection to something greater? Can you elaborate on what that is?
Okay, the Palladian Collective is pleased to answer this question, and there is a part of your intricate structure that is allowing you to access your multidimensional nature. And we would say, yes, that we agree that the orgasmic experience as a part of your reproduction with another human being is allowing you to access that inner part of that connection to your outer manifestation through multidimension. However, there is a part of this equation we would say the human beings within your collective are missing out on, because they have been programmed or they have been taught to believe that the function of the orgasm and the function of their sexual nature is for two reasons only, and that is for pleasure, or that is for the reproduction of a child. However, we would say there is also an aspect of your frequency modification that is holding you back from this orgasmic experience, fully achieving that connection to your multidimensional self and the rays of your consciousness. The frequency modification we speak of is where your religions have taught many human beings that their sexual nature is something to be hidden. Their sexual nature is something to be ashamed of or feel guilt about, or to feel as if it is a lower vibrational component of who they are as a being. And we would say that was not at all the purpose for your orgasmic experience or for your reproductive capabilities. You came here not only to seed a new generation, you came here to access your remembrance of your connective force to all of the universe. And through the orgasm, you are given the opportunity to open that window of remembrance. However, you must pay close attention to the consciousness by which or in which you use this tool to access that part of who you are. Because, my friends, we have often said that the frequency that you hold matches the frequency that you manifest. And there is always a mirror to that frequency. So if you are placing your orgasmic experience or your expression of your interdimensional sexual nature in a definition of lower vibration, or you are even connecting with a human being, we would say, of a lower consciousness, that is not the energetic alignment of harmony that would enable you to use this experience to its benefit. You have asked the question, is it an interdimensional experience? We would say most definitely, because it allows you to remember the unison or the oneness and the bliss and the frequency of the highest vibration that you came here to connect through. It takes you to that place in which you remember that you are one with it all. And as you access that place, you begin to expand through that frequency and allow it to seep into your every bit of your everyday being. The core of who you are enables an alignment with that remembrance or an alignment of that frequency, you see. But if you are using this creative force of energy through a lower vibrational circumstance, or even we would say the consciousness of the human being is held in a lower frequency, this is not benefiting you from a multidimensional, expansive standpoint.
So just to clarify, you're saying if two individuals are in, say, a loving relationship and are of a higher consciousness, then the experience of orgasm actually is an evolutionary process that helps them to not only reconnect to the remembrance of this higher dimensional origin from which they came, but also evolves them somehow spiritually.
We would call it a healing, because there are many aspects of your physical being that are connected to this multidimensional expression of energy. So, as you know, there is a heightened sensitivity around this expression of energy. That heightened sensitivity is triggering many aspects of your physical being to release energetic substances, to release energetic creative forces within your field of energy. And as those substances are released, as those energies are accessed, you are placing your physical body in an alignment of harmony that is allowing for healing to take place. That healing is, yes, a multidimensional connection, but it has a very solid and strong physical component of your reality or of your being as a physical human in this time. We ask that human beings remember the part of their nature that came here to heal through this experience.
So what happens if you have, if you experience an orgasm with somebody of a lower consciousness than you, or let's say two individuals of lower consciousness? Is it purely a physical experience at that point, or is it adverse?
Yes, so there is a physical nature and a physical component to this energetic response. We want you to remember that we have always spoken of the connective force between two human beings. As the auric fields merge together and as the heart chakra resonates with another, you become a one in that moment. And there is a one consciousness that is formed between the two of you. And in that one consciousness, there is a balance or a adjustment to a dominant frequency. So if you are connected with a human being in this way that is of a lower frequency than your own, there is a free will choice on the part of that lower consciousness to accept the higher frequency through the energy that is exchanged. However, there is also a free will choice within the higher consciousness individual to accept the lower dominant frequency. This is all, of course, done through the emotional body and the acceptance of the frequency through the emotional body. So because human beings are very physical in nature, you must consider the physical circumstance of the interaction. So when you say that there would be a benefit to a loving couple that was of a higher consciousness, we would agree with that statement because the physical experience connected to that energy would be higher vibrational as well. So if you are choosing a partner that is of a lower consciousness, you can imagine how there could be many aspects of that activity that would be lower vibrational as a part of your physical experience, as in there is not an emotional response that is held within the highest regard to a loving frequency. And in that case, we would say you can be accepting of that lower frequency through that exchange. So in essence, are you able to lower your frequency through the exchange of energy in this way? We would say most definitely. And in order to judge how you are taking on that lower vibrational consciousness, you must look to your physical experience and how you are manifesting the emotions around that physical experience in order to allow it to come from the highest place of benefit for your physical being.
So what happens with somebody who may have a lot of sexual partners and not necessarily be in a loving relationship? Does that adversely affect their growth, or do they even possibly pick up lower vibrational psychological issues from the different individuals that they've had as sexual partners?
We would say you are always taking on the consciousness of that partner in that energetic exchange. So we would say there are varying degrees of this. If there is a human being who has many partners, and those many partners are of a lower vibrational consciousness, and the outer physical manifestations of those interactions are causing a lower vibrational frequency within the emotional body, there is an ability to hold on to that energy that is exchanged. So in other words, there can be a genetic modification, there can be a physical adjustment, there can be a spiritual adjustment, there can be a mental adjustment. It is all affecting your being in a variety of ways because you are exchanging a genetic, energetic response in a connective force of one with another. Now, let us give another example. If there is a human being who has multiple partners, and those multiple partners are of a lower vibrational consciousness, but between these partners, she has a loving experience with family members. She is supported and secure, and she is working within a higher framework of her soul and allowing herself to be upgraded and integrated with new frequencies. It does not mean that she has to hold the energetic experience within her energy body. She can choose, or he can choose, we would say, to heal or release the energy taken on through that experience. So it is all within the choice of the individual as to how they choose to manifest their reality through these experiences.
So let's say somebody's watching this show right now and they are either in a relationship where they feel that they're with somebody of a low consciousness, or maybe they're single and they're thinking that they want to be with somebody of a higher consciousness for the reasons that you just mentioned. How do they even know? I mean, how do you know if you're with somebody of a higher consciousness? Is it important to seek that out?
You were given a very intricate structure by which you are connected in order to find truth. That intricate structure is very aligned in this time with your emotional body, and we have spoken very much of the emotional body and how you manifest through your frequency that is created by this emotional body. So if this partner, and we may give an example here, if this partner is of a lower vibrational consciousness, there would be a manifestation of that consciousness within your experience that you would be attaching emotion to. In other words, perhaps this partner of lower vibrational consciousness is allowing you to feel as if your physical body is not in line with an image of beauty, or perhaps this partner is not taking consideration for the needs that you have within the relationship, or perhaps this partner is not giving you the love that you need between these energetic experiences to make you feel worthy of an accepted human being through a connection of love. All of these experiences are going to be manifested within the emotional body, and they're going to hold a lower frequency. That lower frequency would be explained as anger, would be explained as sadness, would be explained as your own worth as related to this mirror to self. And we ask human beings to realize that any soul that they have manifested as a partner in this way comes in order to teach them through this mirror what aspect of their reality they are needing to change or shift within themselves. But in order to decipher the level of consciousness of the partner that you are relating with, we would always defer to the emotional body and how you carry emotion as related to the physical experiences you are having with this partner.
So in such a situation, if somebody finds themselves in a relationship that is of a lower consciousness, would you suggest that in that case they would be better off finding either being alone or being with a partner of a higher consciousness as opposed to staying where they are?
We would say yes, that we would agree with this only from the standpoint of the energetic exchange. Because in every physical situation where there is a connection of this type of energy, there is the ability to take on the consciousness and the emotional energetic expressions of another through your DNA genetic. And there is an ability to hold those for a period of time if you are not aware or conscious of your taking these into your being. So we would recommend that if there is a realization that this partner is not the highest of consciousness, that first and foremost, you are not engaging in an exchange of this nature, but even more importantly, we would ask you to scrutinize why you feel you have manifested this partner in a relationship at this time. We want to remind those who are taking in this transmission that through the most recent energetic shift, there is a new understanding of the multidimensional self and how that is showing up in your physical world to heal. So many of these partnerships, many of these relationships are now within the spotlight, per se, of your own healing process, of your own ascension process. So we would ask those in this time that are feeling as if they have manifested a lower vibrational partner in this way to pay very close attention to how that may be an extension of the multidimensional expression of their soul that they came here to heal in this time.
Thank you. So how was that for you?
Good.
Yeah.
It was, very good.
You always feel better after channeling, right?
I do.
Yeah. You actually look better. You look more like...
I know we should start all the videos with this. So I look yeah. No, I do. I do notice. It's funny. I used to think I shouldn't channel when I'm sick, or if I'm having a bad day, I can't take any clients because I'm too down. And the first thing I do now is channel. And I think, no, I'll feel better, afterwards. And I always do.
Yeah.
I always do.
Well, you've been writing a pretty incredible book. I've had a chance to read some of it.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm reading it too, along with you. Yeah, I'm amazed. It's hard to imagine some of that stuff is coming through me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we'll have to read some excerpts from that in a future show and
I would love
talk
to.
about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be great.
But thanks for joining me again.
Oh, thank you.
We'll come back again next month maybe and talk a little further and maybe even read some of the book and
definitely
speculate on that a little bit. So
sounds great.
But so thank you all for joining us for another episode of Awaken Empower TV. We'll see you next week for another incredible show.